Okay, this is your guys' spring mock final exam walkthrough. So I'm gonna actually be making 4 videos, and I'm gonna pretty much section them off in terms of like concepts that kind of like are easily grouped together. So this first video is gonna have problems numbers 1 through 10, okay, and it has to do with logarithms. So for number 1 through 6, you have a log or natural log function, and you have to be able to graph it and to identify the graph based off the equation. So there's 2 things you really have to do. Number 1 is you have to set the parentheses equal to 0 to find the vertical asymptote. And the reason why you guys do this is because, remember, for logarithms or natural logs, you cannot have 0 or negative numbers inside of the parentheses. So that's rule number 1. And then rule number 2 is then you plug in an x value to find a y value that is on your graph. So I'm going to be demonstrating these 2 rules, you guys, so that you can be able to solve for these. So let's take a look at number 1. So for number 1, first rule is right. You gotta set parentheses equal to 0 to find the vertical asymptote. So here's the parentheses, right? So I set 3x minus 3 equal to 0. So then I added 3 to both sides, and then I divided both sides by 3. And then I got x is equal to 1. Now, remember, your x values have to be greater than this, because when you plug in 1, that's when you get 0. So all of your domain has to be x is greater than 1. So what that means is essentially, once this comes back up, there we go. So now let's look for the graphs that have a domain x greater than 1. Well, I'll make this different. Okay, this one's good. This one's good. Okay, notice these, right? That's not good and that's not good. So that automatically means you can eliminate C and D. And then you just have to choose from between A and B, because the domains are both x is greater than 1. Now the next step is, let's do a test point. So when you guys look at both of these curves, choose a test point to see if your test point is going to be on the actual graph. So notice how they both cross x is equal to 2, the line. So I'm just going to do a test point as x is equal to 2. You could do a test point of x is equal to 4. You could do a test point of x is equal to 6. You could do a test point as x is equal to 8. As long as you're going to be able to see a point on the graph. So I did test point x is equal to 2, which means I plug in x is equal to 2 into the equation. So f of 2 is going to be log 2, and then 3 times 2 minus 3 plus 2. So 3 times 2 minus 3, that's going to be 6 minus 3, which gives you 3. So now you plug this into your calculator in order to solve to see what our y value would be. Now, for some of you, I know that this, you cannot put that into your calculator, so you would have to do the change of base formula, which is just log base 3 over log base 2 plus 2. But some of your calculators, for some of you, does just go directly from here to here, which is also fine as well. So once you put this all into your calculator, you're going to get 3.58. So at 2, 3.58, which graph does that fit? Well, it's this one. Because look, 2, 3.58 looks to be right there. This one's at 2, not even, like 2, negative 0.2 or something, which is not even good. So that's why B is your answer. Alright, let's go to number 2. Number 2, you gotta set the parentheses equal to 0. So I did, added 9 to both sides, divided both sides by 3, and you get x is equal to 3, which means your domain has to be x is greater than 3. So look for all the ones that fit that. This one does not. That B does. C does. D does not. So those are all the equations. So now we're just debating between B and C. Now let's just do a test point. And when I look at B and C, notice that they both cross at the line x is equal to 4. So I'm going to use that as my test point. Again, you don't have to do that one. You could have done this test point, but you can't do a test point over here because the graphs don't even cross there, right? So I'm doing my test point at x is equal to 4, which means I plug in 4 into the original equation to find my y value. So f of 4 is equal to log base 4 of 3 times 4 minus 9 plus 1. I'm just plugging in 4 into the equation, you guys. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 minus 9 is 3, which is how I got 3 there. You either plug this into your calculator if it lets you, or you guys have to change this to the change of base formula, which is simply just log of what's in the parentheses 3 over the base, log of 4. So log 3 divided by log 4, put that in your calculator, and then add 1.79. So which one's at 4 comma 1.79 between B and C? Not this one, so it has to be B. Number 3. Alright, set the parentheses equal to 0, so which I did. Subtracted 4 to both sides, divided both sides by 2, x equal to negative 2. So that means my domain has to be x is greater than negative 2, so which ones aren't that? That one's not. B is fine, C is fine, D is not fine. Then you guys just have between B and C. Now let's just test a point. I just decided to test a point of x is equal to 0 because, as you can see, both graphs cross that. Again, you don't have to do x equals 0. You can do x equals 2, 4, 6, or 8, wherever you want your test point, as long as you can see a coordinate. So plug in 0 into the original equation. So then 2 times 0, which is 0 plus 4, is just 4. Plug in this into your calculator or change of base. So log base 4, log of 4 divided by log of 1/4. Put that in your calculator and then add 5, and you're going to get 4. So 0, 4 between B and C, where's 0, 4? It's C, not B. 4, set the parentheses equal to 0, and we get 3/2. Do a test point. Now, so look at 3/2. Which graphs have x is greater than 3/2? A and B, not C, not D. Look, that's not 3/2. Okay, debating between A and B, so let's just do a test point. So I decided to do a test point at x equals 2. Remember, you can always just do different test points if you want to. So plug in 2 to the equation. ln of 1 plus 3 is what I got. So ln of 1 is 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. So that means my coordinate should be at 3/2 comma 3. So 3/2 comma 3 between A and B. Not this one, because that looks like 3/2 comma whatever that point is. So the correct answer is B. 2 comma 3/2, that looks to be right there. Number 5. Set the parentheses equal to 0. So we got this, add both sides by 2, then divide by 2, and you get x is equal to 1. So x has to be greater than 1 for the domain, so that A works, B works, C does not work, D does not work. Gotta test a point at x is equal to 2, so plug in 2 to the original and then solve. So we get this. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 minus 2 in the parentheses will just be 2, so we just have that. So plug in log base 2 plus 1, and you're going to get around 1.3. So which graph has 2 comma 1.3? Looks to be right there. This one looks to be a negative 0.5 or something, which is not 1.3. Number 6. Plug in the parentheses equal, or set the parentheses equal to 0. So we get 4x minus 9 equals 0. Add 9 on both sides, divide both sides by 4, you get positive 9/4. So x has to be greater than the domain, so which graphs work? A works, B does not work, C works, D does not work. So we're just debating between A and C. gotta test a point, so I'm going to use the value of x. See how both of these graphs cross at x is equal to 4. So I'm going to use that as my test point. Plug in 4 into the original, so we get 4 times 4 minus 9, which is 16 minus 9, which is 7. So put this in your calculator if it allows you, or you gotta do change of base formula, which is log of 7 divided by log of 1/3. Put that in your calculator, then subtract by 4 and negative 5.77. So which graph has 4 comma negative 5.77? And A does not, because that 4 looks to be a positive number, so it's not that, which means C, and look, that looks to be a negative 5.77, so it's C. Alright, so those are those types of problems. Moving on, now we got these ones, you guys, writing your equation. So here's the formulas, you guys. This one, the first one's product rule, this one's quotient rule, and this is changing from log form to exponential form. Okay, so let's go ahead. Alright, so we have 7. So remember what you guys have to do is, well, it's a log and a log, and there's addition, which means it's product rule, which means you have to add both of the parentheses together. See, log, log, addition. So this parenthesis times this parenthesis would be right there. So for our problem, it'd be, we keep the same base, x plus 6 times x, which is what I got right there. X times x plus 6, and that's going to equal to 4 still. Going to simplify this to get x squared plus 6x by using distribution. Alright, so now we have this. So now this is the log form and a number. So log form and a number, we're going to change it to exponential form. So it's your b value is 2, so that's going to be 2 to the 4th power is equal to what's in the parentheses, x squared plus 6x. 2 to the 4th is 16. Now we just set this equation equal to 0. Subtract 16 on both sides, so we get this. Factor, so what two things multiply to negative 16 but add together gives you 6? That is 8 and negative 2. And then, to solve for x, remember it's just the opposite of these numbers. So x equals negative 8 and x is equal to 2. Now remember, you have to plug in both to see if they will give you a positive for the log. So if you plug in 2 into the x's, that's good because it's going to be positive. But if you guys recognize, you see if you plug in x equal negative 8 right there, that's going to be log base 2 of a negative number. So that's why negative 8 cannot be an answer, so that means your only answer is 2. Negative 8 is what you guys call an extraneous solution. Alright, number 8. Okay, so number 8, log and a log, and there's subtraction, which is quotient rule. So back to the formulas, it's this one. So this one tells me you gotta do this one divided by that one. So log base 2, because they both share that. So this one divided by that one. So x squared minus 4 all over 6 still equal to 4. Okay, so now we have a log is all equal to a number. So now we could do the changing it from log form to exponential form. So 2 to the 4th power, 2 to the 4th power is equal to what's in the parentheses, x squared minus 4 over 6. 2 to the 4th, 16. I transitioned over here. Now we have to get rid of this denominator, so I multiplied both sides by 6 because these will cancel. So 6 times 16 gave you 96, equal to x squared minus 4. Added 4 to both sides. Then you guys get this. Still gotta solve for x, so then square root both sides. Remember, if you square root, you're gonna get plus or minus. So square root of 100 is plus or minus 10. If you plug in 10 or negative 10 into that x, it's gonna be a positive number. So both of those answers are good, so answer is A. 9 and 10. Alright, so 9 log, and there's a minus sign, so it's quotient rule. So that means it's this divided by that. So log base 7, x minus 3 divided by x plus 5 is equal to log base 7 of 77. Now notice, you guys, they both have logs on both sides, right? So since they both have logs, that means this has to equal to that. So I set x minus 3 over x plus 5 equal to 77. I put the 77 over the 1 so that I could cross multiply. So 1 times x minus 3 is just x minus 3. 77 times x plus 5, gotta distribute, so 77 times x is 77x, 77 times 5 is 385. Now we just need to put variables on one side and constants on the other. I added 3 to both sides to get this, and that should be I added 3 to both sides. Oh, this should be a positive. And then I got 388. I subtracted 77x from both sides, and I got negative 76x is equal to 388. Then to isolate x, I divided both sides by negative 76. And this is what it looks like. Put that in your calculator and you get negative 5.1. But when I plugged in negative 5.1 into these x's, you're going to notice that you're going to get negative in the parentheses. So that does not work. So that means negative 5.1 is not our answer. And since we don't have any answers, that means it's no solution. Number 10. So we got a natural log, and a plus sign, which is quotient product rule, which means you gotta do 8 times 5x squared minus 2. So ln 8 times 5x squared minus 2 is equal to ln of 74. I distributed 8 to both to get 40x squared minus 16. Now notice both sides have ln, so that means this parenthesis must equal to that one. So 40x squared minus 16 is equal to 74. Solve for x, so add 16 to both sides, and then divide both sides by 40. So x squared is going to equal to 90 over 40. I noticed that both of them can be divisible by 10. So I get x squared is equal to 9 over 4. Then to get rid of the second power, you just square root both sides. But remember, whenever you square root, you're going to get plus or minus. So x is going to equal to plus or minus 3/2, right? Square root of that, you guys, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 4 is 2, which is how we get 3/2. Plug in both of these, the plus and the minus, into the equation, but notice, you guys, if you plug in anything to something that has a second power, it will always be positive. So that means that's our answer. So that concludes part 1 of the video, and there's still going to be part 2, 3, and 4. Okay?